everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into a topic I know a lot of you are really interested in, and honestly, who isn't? Doubling your money.
Always a popular subject.
It is. And you guys sent in some great stuff. You know I love to check out what you're all watching. And this video from Menos con Ime, well, it really breaks down this whole idea of doubling your money in a way that I think a lot of us can get behind.
Definitely. It's a pretty clear formula they lay out.
Exactly. It's called the CRT formula, right?
Right.
And the thing that really stood out to me was their emphasis on, not just constantly pouring more money into investments.
Right. It's about being smart with what you've got.
Yeah. Making your money work for you. What does that even mean, though? Can you explain that a bit? In a way that makes sense for, everyday investors like myself?
Sure. It's about taking the money you have and instead of letting it just sit there, putting it into things that will grow over time.
Okay, so investments.
Exactly. Investments, yeah. Things that have the potential to earn more money for you, whether it's stocks or bonds or real estate or even a business. The goal is to get your money working for you so you don't have to work as hard for your money.
I like the sound of that. So how does this whole CRT thing actually work?
Well, the CRT stands for capital, return, and time. Those are the three big players in this whole game.
Okay, capital, return, and time. Got it. So capital, that's how much you start with.
Exactly. It's your starting point. And this video does a good job of showing that you don't need to be starting with $1 million to make this work.
That's good to hear, because I certainly don't have $1 million lying around.
Most people don't. It's about making smart choices with the money you do have. Now, return, that's the gain or profit you make on your investment. It's usually expressed as a percentage.
So the higher the return, the more money I make.
Right. But of course, higher returns usually come with higher risks.
Ah, so it's about finding that balance.
Absolutely. And that's where understanding your own risk tolerance comes in.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've got capital and return, and the last one is time, right? And that's something we can't really control, can we?
You're right. Time marches on, whether we like it or not. But it's actually our greatest asset when it comes to investing. The longer you're invested, the more time your money has to grow.
And this is where that whole compounding thing comes in, right?
Exactly. Compounding is like the secret sauce of investing. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about compounding and how that all works. But first, this video, it mentions something called the Rule of 72, which I have to admit I'm not familiar with.
The Rule of 72 is kind of a neat little trick to quickly figure out how long it'll take to double your money.
Oh, okay. So a quick calculation. Tell me more.
Yeah, it's just a quick way to estimate.
So how does this Rule of 72 thing actually work in practice?
It's pretty simple, really. You just take the number 72 and divide it by the rate of return you're hoping to get on your investment.
Okay, so if I'm expecting a 6% return.
Exactly. You divide 72 by 6, which gives you 12. So in theory, it should take about 12 years for your money to double at that 6% return.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's an estimate, right?
Right. It's not going to be exact down to the penny or anything. Investments can go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you a general idea of how long it might take to see that kind of growth.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So, okay, the video talks about how this Rule of 72 works with things like fixed deposits, but then it throws out a bunch of other investment ideas.
Yeah, they cover quite a few different options.
They do, and I thought it would be cool to break down some of those with you, get your take on them.
Sounds good to me.
So they start with gold. They say it's averaged about a 6% return over the past 10 years, which isn't bad at all.
Not bad at all. And gold has some other advantages, too.
Like what?
Well, it's often seen as a good hedge against inflation. When the cost of everything else is going up, gold tends to hold its value pretty well.
Oh, right, because it's a physical asset, it actually exists.
Exactly, and it has that long history of being seen as a store of value going back centuries.
So even if the dollar goes down, gold is still gold.
Exactly. That's why a lot of people see it as a safe haven asset.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Now, they also talked about silver. Is that kind of the same idea as gold?
It's similar, yeah. Silver is also considered a hedge against inflation. It's often grouped with gold in that sense.
But it's cheaper than gold, right?
It is, yeah. And that can make it appealing to some investors. But it can also be more volatile than gold, meaning its price can go up and down more dramatically.
So a little riskier, maybe?
Potentially, yes. But again, it's all about finding the right balance for your own risk tolerance and investment goals.
True, true. Okay, now this is one I'm really interested in because I've heard a lot about it, the S&P 500. The video said it has an average return of something like 7.5 to 8%.
Yeah, that's about right, historically speaking.
Ah, that's pretty impressive.
It is, but it's important to remember that those returns are not guaranteed. And the stock market can be very unpredictable in the short term.
Yeah, I mean, no one has a crystal ball, right?
Exactly. But over the long term, the stock market tends to trend upwards, and investing in something like the S&P 500 is a way to participate in that growth.
So it's a long game.
For sure. And this is where that concept of time we talked about earlier really comes into play. The longer you hold on to those investments, the more potential they have to grow. That's good advice.
Okay, so we've got gold, silver, stocks. Oh, this one sounded interesting. REITs. They talked about those in the context of real estate.
Right. REITs are real estate investment trusts. They're a way to invest in real estate without actually having to go out and buy properties yourself.
Because it's like you're pooling your money with other investors to buy a share of a building or something.
Exactly. And those properties generate rental income, which is then distributed to the investors as dividends.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it can be a good way to diversify your portfolio and add some real estate exposure without having to deal with being a landlord.
No late night calls about leaky faucets. Sign me up. Okay, but the video also talked about these things called emerging markets. What are those exactly?
So emerging markets are basically countries that are still in the process of developing economically.
So like up-and-coming economies.
Exactly.
That makes sense. So it's all about spreading your money around and not putting all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly. Diversification is key when it comes to investing.
This has been super helpful. I feel like I'm getting a much better handle on these different investment options. But there's one more thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up. Remember how we talked about the power of reinvesting your profits?
Absolutely. That's where the real magic happens.
It's like you're not just earning money on your initial investment, but you're earning money on your earnings.
Exactly. That's the beauty of compound growth. It's like a snowball effect.
So the more you reinvest, the faster that snowball rolls and the bigger it gets, right?
Precisely. And even small amounts, reinvested consistently over time, can make a huge difference in the long run.
Okay, so say I have like $1,000 invested and it earns, let's say, a 5% return. That's what, an extra $50?
Right. Now, you could take that $50 and spend it, which is fine.
Probably what I would do. Let's be real.
Hey, no judgment here. But if you resist the urge to spend it and instead reinvest that $50, now it's also earning a 5% return the next year.
Oh, I see. So it just keeps building on itself.
Exactly. And the longer you keep doing that, the more powerful that effect becomes. That's why it's so important to start investing early, even if it's with small amounts.
Because time is your friend when it comes to investing.
100%. The earlier you start, the more time you have to let that compounding work its magic.
This has been amazing. I feel like I've learned so much. So for everyone listening who's ready to start their own investing journey, or maybe just level up their existing strategy, any final words of wisdom?
Don't be afraid to jump in, even if it feels a little intimidating at first. Start small, do your research, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. There are so many resources available these days, and there's never been a better time to take control of your financial future.
I love that. Take control, start building that snowball, and let it roll. And hey, if you want to dive even deeper into this whole doubling your money thing, be sure to check out the link to the video from Menos a Más con M in the show notes. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic you care about, but until then, happy investing.